the law passed by the Congress defending America's national security?
Senator, I cannot. It would be irresponsible for me to talk about anything, and it is pending litigation. We can talk
I was
semantics
Attorney
all day
General,
long.
and very
I'm not
often,
trying to hedge on anything, Senator. I just
I'm
can't
having a
comment on
problem
anything.
with the idea that you won't tell me that the Department of Justice will continue to defend against constitutional attacks the law of the United States. When I was Attorney General of the state of Connecticut, I would say I have an obligation to defend the law of Connecticut against any attacks. You have an obligation, or you did as Attorney General of Florida, to go to court when those laws were attacked. You have an obligation as United States Attorney General to do what this Attorney General is doing, whether you agree with it or not, and frankly, whatever the president thinks about that law, you have an obligation to defend it. This is an easy question for you. Will you defend laws of the United States of America against constitutional attacks? I'm asking you in general.
In general, yes.
And with respect to the law that would require divestiture of TikTok, which is a law passed by this body and supported by, I think, a majority of members on both sides of the aisle, why can't you tell us that you will defend it?
Senator, I'm not hedging. This is all pending litigation, and I can't talk about pending litigation if confirmed as Attorney General.
I have to tell you, with all due respect, that answer is...
This may look like a procedural disagreement over pending litigation, but it's actually a stress test of the Justice Department's independence. What's really being tested here is whether the rule of law remains binding when it becomes politically inconvenient. This raises broader questions about where institutional loyalty lies, toward statutes passed by Congress or toward the preferences of those in power. In this video, we'll break down how a single refusal to answer reveals deeper tensions between authority and accountability at the heart of American justice.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you, Ms. Bondi, for answering our question. I want to come back to TikTok. And we ran out of time when I was asking you before about the importance of the law that was passed overwhelmingly bipartisan majority here in the United States Congress. As you know, last year, a Chinese hacking group, it was called Salt Typhoon, broke into several American phone companies, reportedly used that access to spy on the White House, the FBI, other sensitive government targets. The threat of Chinese communist espionage goes beyond just watching. It also involved potentially shutting down our grids, other critical infrastructure. I assume you agree with me that Chinese cyber warfare, espionage, malign influence is an existential threat to America.
It is an existential threat, Senator, and also I have not seen it yet, but from what I've heard about former FBI Director Wray's comments on 60 Minutes regarding China, sleeper cells within our own country, infiltrating our water systems, our natural gas lines, telecommunications, a very, very real threat to our country.
I'm glad that we agree, and as you know, and as the Department of Justice has noted, it's not classified, so we can talk about it openly. The ByteDance is beholden to the demands of the Chinese government. It is controlled by the Chinese government, and it in turn controls TikTok. Do you agree that ByteDance's control, ownership, exploitation of TikTok is a threat to American national security?
Senator, this is pending litigation within the Department of Justice.
Okay, let me put it a different way. It's not pending litigation within the Department of Justice. It's in the courts.
In the courts.
And the Department of Justice is currently defending the constitutionality of American law. Will you continue to defend the law passed by the Congress defending America's national security?
Senator, I cannot. It would be irresponsible for me to talk about anything, and it is pending litigation. We can talk semantics all day long.
And very
I'm not trying to hedge on anything, Senator. I just can't comment on anything.
With the idea that you won't tell me that the Department of Justice will continue to defend against constitutional attacks the law of the United States. When I was Attorney General of the state of Connecticut, I would say I have an obligation to defend the law of Connecticut against any attacks. You have an obligation, or you did as Attorney General of Florida, to go to court when those laws were attacked. You have an obligation as United States Attorney General to do what this Attorney General is doing, whether you agree with it or not, and frankly, whatever the president thinks about that law, you have an obligation to defend it. This is an easy question for you. Will you defend laws of the United States of America against constitutional attacks? I'm asking you in general.
In general, yes.
And with respect to the law that would require divestiture of TikTok, which is a law passed by this body and supported by, I think, a majority of members on both sides of the aisle, why can't you tell us that you will defend it?
Senator, I'm not hedging. This is all pending litigation, and I can't talk about pending litigation if confirmed as Attorney General.
I have to tell you with all due respect, that answer is unacceptable to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I go to
What we just witnessed in that chamber was not a shouting match, not a dramatic outburst, but something far more revealing. A moment of silence where clarity should have lived. A moment when a direct question met a carefully constructed wall. Senator Richard Blumenthal laid out a chain of facts, not speculation, not rhetoric, but publicly acknowledged threats, hostile cyber activity, compromised infrastructure, and a foreign-controlled platform operating at the center of American communication. And when the question finally arrived, whether the Department of Justice would defend a law passed by Congress to protect national security, the answer never came. Instead, we heard the phrase that echoes through so many moments of institutional tension in Washington. I can't talk about that. Not because the issue was unclear, not because the stakes were hypothetical, but because litigation process and procedural caution were invoked as reasons to avoid a commitment that once would have been considered foundational to the role itself. This exchange matters because it exposes the fragile line between responsibility and avoidance. Senator Blumenthal wasn't asking for strategy. He wasn't demanding privileged details. He was asking for assurance that the laws of the United States, passed with bipartisan support, would be defended against constitutional challenge by the very institution tasked with upholding them. The refusal to answer wasn't merely a legal posture. It was a signal. And signals in moments like these speak louder than declarations ever could. Pam Bondi acknowledged the threat environment clearly. She agreed that hostile cyber operations represent an existential challenge. She referenced warnings from intelligence leaders about vulnerabilities across systems Americans rely on every day. There was no disagreement on the danger. The disagreement emerged when the conversation shifted from identifying the threat to confronting the responsibility to act against it. That is where the tension crystallized. In a functioning democratic system, laws passed by Congress are not optional opinions. They are expressions of collective judgment, shaped by debate, amended through compromise, and ultimately enacted to serve the public interest. The duty of the Justice Department has long been understood as defending those laws in court, regardless of political wins or personal preference. That duty is not about agreeing with a statute. It is about preserving the integrity of the system that produced it. Blumenthal's frustration was not performative, it was institutional. He spoke from experience. As a former attorney general who understood that defending the law is not a matter of convenience, it is an obligation. When he pressed again and again for a simple affirmation, what he was really defending was a principle. That the machinery of government cannot function if its guardians decline to stand behind its outcomes. This moment also reflects a broader pattern in modern governance, where caution increasingly replaces conviction, where legal complexity becomes a refuge from moral clarity, where phrases like pending litigation are used not just to protect process, but to delay accountability. In an era defined by rapid technological change and global competition, hesitation itself carries consequences. The issue at hand, foreign influence over platforms used by millions of Americans, is not abstract. It touches communication, information flow, and the ability of a society to debate freely without external manipulation. Congress recognized that reality and acted. Courts will do their part, as they should. But the executive branch also has a role, and that role includes defending the framework Congress establishes, not retreating from it at the first sign of controversy. What makes this exchange resonate is not what was said, but what was left unsaid. There was no reassurance that the law would stand, no acknowledgement of obligation beyond procedural limits. Just a pause, followed by a refusal, followed by visible frustration from a senator who understood exactly what that refusal implied. This is how trust erodes, not through dramatic collapse, but through quiet moments where responsibility is deferred. When citizens watch hearings like this, they are not parsing legal doctrine. They are asking a simpler question: who is willing to stand up for the decisions made in our name? Who will defend the guardrails when they are tested? Accountability does not require certainty. It requires commitment. The willingness to say, even in uncertain terrain, that the institutions of this country will not abandon their core duties. When that willingness is absent, it leaves a vacuum. One filled by doubt, suspicion, and disengagement. As this hearing moved on, the tension lingered in the room. Not because voices were raised, but because a line had been drawn between those who believe the law demands defense and those who believe silence is safer, between a system that acts and a system that waits. Moments like this are why oversight exists, why hearings matter, why questions must be asked even when the answers are uncomfortable. Democracy is not preserved by avoiding conflict. It is preserved by confronting it openly, honestly, and with courage. If you believe transparency matters, if you believe accountability is not optional, and if you believe the public deserves more than carefully worded refusals, stay engaged. Support independent analysis. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA and help us continue exposing the moments that define the true state of American governance.